to their technical well-being. So advising them on technical best practices and acting as a solution advisor. Basically helping them to maximize their ROI with Salesforce. So in terms of agenda, what we have outlined here for you today, I'm going to go through a quick little overview, and then I'm going to introduce Devend, Vinodh from Adobe, and they're going to walk you through the project that they've been working on over the past year, and show you a little demo of the tool that they've built, and we're going to open it up at the end for Q&A, so hopefully we'll have about 10 minutes for that. So, security model overview. We're presuming that everyone here has a relatively good understanding of the security model within Salesforce. It is an advanced session, and you're going to see a lot of the stuff we talk about here is of an advanced nature. But just in terms of an overview, when we look at the Salesforce security model, the different components that are part of that, we can see that baseline visibility is really where we have record ownership and profiles, right? And as we work our way down through the model, the different components such as the org by defaults, role hierarchy sharing goes all the way down to territory management. We see with these different components we're really opening up user visibility, right? Now, the two most common pain points we hear from customers, day in, day out, profile proliferation and complex role hierarchies, right? And these can lead to a lot of governance issues within organizations, especially when it comes to change control. For this session, we're going to be focusing primarily on profile proliferation when we talk about Devend's project. And with profile proliferation, the two most common issues you see is the administrative overhead that is caused as a result of proliferation around profiles, and the security risks, of course. So users having access permissions that they shouldn't, right? Quick overview of profiles, just to set the stage for Devend. Profile is a collection of settings and permissions to determine what a user can see and do, right? So in terms of settings, what apps, tabs, record types, fields, page layouts can they see? In terms of what they can do, what administrative privileges do they have, general user, what access to custom and standard objects do they have, right? Now, permission sets. You're going to hear a lot about this from Devend, right? And this is a very, very important part of the presentation here today. And you're going to see how this is really a tool that you can utilize to overcome profile proliferation. So what is a permission set? A permission set is a collection of settings and permissions that give users access to various tools and functions, right? And to me, even though this has been out for quite a while, this is actually an area of functionality that I don't think all our customers are maximizing to its fullest potential. So what we see with permission sets is where the relationship between a user and a profile is one-to-one. They can have multiple permission sets, right? And settings and permission sets are those found in profiles. So basically what we just saw on the previous slide. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Devend, and he's going to walk you through the project that he and his team undertook at Adobe. Devend?
Thank you very much.
Yours.
Thank you very much. So just a quick brief check. Who all have used permission sets out here? Who all are familiar with it? Awesome, love it. So everyone's very familiar, so this is going to be a lot easier for us. So just a brief background on Adobe. We're based out of San Jose, and Adobe's been around for a while. We do a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting stuff, but internally also we use Salesforce. We're heavily invested in Salesforce. We've got about 11,500 plus employees direct. We've got about 80 offices in 41 countries. Again, we're based out of San Jose, and we have been using Salesforce for many, many years, close to about 5 or 6 years. And over time, as we added more and more functionality, we went ahead and kept building more things. And as we built more and more things, we kept on creating new profiles with each project. I'm sure a lot of it, will resonate with you all, because as you keep adding more functionality in silos, next thing you know, you have a whole bunch of profiles. And we realized we've got, for 14,000 active users, internal and external, we had about 96 different profiles. Huge number. Depending on where you guys come from, it could be complex like this. This is probably the worst case. When Salesforce saw it, they were like, totally, oh my god, what's going on? But also from mid-sized companies, you may have some which may not be that much, right? So, the problem is still the same, the challenge is still the same, that there are so many profiles that will get added as functionality gets added. Now the key thing is there are some profiles that will be added in the system which may not even have any users, right? And then those are the ones which you've got to watch out for. So we'll go a little bit more in detail in this. So along with this, we also had a very complex role hierarchy. So again, we are one of the worst of the worst. So, but there's a lot of stuff going on in Adobe. So, but I think the biggest things were we resulted eventually in huge overlapping profiles, and that's something we've got to watch out for. So you'll have a lot of profiles that will be similar in different fashions. Then we'll go a little bit more in detail in this. There'll be duplicate profiles. There'll be a large number of sysadmins. We landed up having 69 system admins. That's a huge risk, right? And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then you'll also have a whole bunch of users performing the same task, but having different profiles. So multiple user licenses. So all of these will lead into some issues. So as we go through this process, we'll actually realize that the sooner you kind of get your arms around it, the better it would be. And it's one of those things that you've got to really spend a little bit of time and analyze it, and then start putting some guardrails around it so you don't run into an issue like there.
Yeah. And I think that's a key point that that Devend brought up. I beg your pardon. And this is something that we've seen not just with enterprise organizations, but this is small business, mid-market. This is a lot of people experiencing this that have been using Salesforce for quite some time. So bear that in mind as he walks through this use case.
So when we looked at these large number of profiles, how do we go about solving this? So we did a little bit of analysis, and we realized that the profiles can be brought into 3 different distinct buckets. So one is, of course, standard Salesforce profiles, which we obviously don't want to touch or leave them the way they are. We can definitely take the users off that, but the profile itself must stay that way. There are a lot of third-party apps. I mean, we are heavily invested in App Exchange as well, so we use them. And so some of those third-party apps also need us to create profiles, which may or may not even have any users in them. So that's, again, something that's custom, but we've got to have it, right? So we can't live without it. And then comes the big chunk of it, which is the custom profiles, the ones that we created ourselves. Those are the ones which are really good candidates. So if you start looking at it from an analysis perspective, these two are definitely out of the picture. We can't touch them. But the custom profiles is where we want to focus on. And we have a large number. We wanted to bring it down to a manageable number. And essentially, by bringing it down to a manageable number, we wanted to move to permission sets. And that's what we ended up doing. So the way we approach the problem is slightly different. But again, depending on where you're coming from, you can also do something similar. So we extracted the data, the XML, out of Salesforce. We extracted it, and then we pulled it into an app that we built. So, and we'll walk through an app in a couple of minutes. But the key thing out here is when we extracted the data out of Salesforce and we put it in some kind of analysis tool, and that tool can actually be anything from a simple Excel sheet to a complex database, depending on your needs, how many resources you have. But the key thing is that perform the analysis outside. Make sure it's just a read-only app, but make the changes in Salesforce so you get an audit trail and you make sure that you have the right tools to move forward with it. And that's what the key thing is.
Sorry for interrupting, but that's another key point I think as well. Not many organizations may not have the time and resources to go and build something like this. And so looking at this and what Devend was going to show you here today, this is actually something that you could simply do within Excel. So bear that in mind also as he walks you through it.
Absolutely. So I mean that's absolutely key. That follow the risk perspective, right? So make sure that the analysis is done outside, and it's just a number of filters that we are using. So what we're doing is we're comparing a simple profile with another profile. We're looking for opportunities where certain things can be common, and we can reduce it down to one or several permission sets, or where there are different pieces, but there's still some opportunity. That's really what came as a big surprise for us. So let me just walk you through the app that we built out here. So on the left-hand side, you'll see we are comparing 2 profiles, the profile A and B. And because the data is extracted out of Salesforce, we get all the profiles. So we can compare any profile to any profile, and in the demo, we'll actually walk you through a couple of them. Just below that is actually the number of total objects that we selected. So you have, in this case, there are about 216 objects, and then there are some which are common, and then there are some that are different. So in this case, it's a good example. The numbers tell us that there's an opportunity out here to merge, or there's, we should move on. If it's a very close match, but there's no differences, that means we've already gone through the analysis phase of that. And then on the right-hand side is where we start drilling down. So we start looking at what's matching, so those two which are matching, and we can actually drill down to the object level and really down to the CRUD level to see what's common or what's different. And then what's there in profile A but not in B, and what's there in profile B, what's not in A. So it's just, again, it's just nothing but a simple filtration mechanism. You can build it any way you have, whatever the resources you have. But the key thing out here is that do the analysis, make sure that there's things that can be done which can be propagated to a permission set. Now there are, as we go through the demo, we kind of walk it through that there are certain places where the way we pull the data, we could actually compare what's really common in that specific object, and also what was really the key differences. And that actually helped us a lot to propagate from a role to a permission set. So what we'll do now is take a look at the demo. Now we've got 3 different use cases here. So it's a simple low mix where we have 2 people having similar actions, and they just need to be tweaked a little bit. So what this tells me is that we've got 2 distinct profiles that could be potentially merged into a single profile and use permission sets to support it. So let's just jump over to the app. So here on the screen you see the app, and we'll just pick up a couple of them. So this is the data that is extracted outside into this little app, and we will just compare 2 different ones. We could pick up a couple of them, and let's just do some real quick checks. So we can perform the analysis out here, and while he's pulling up the information, one thing that really came out was, it was really around CRUD. Everything basically stopped at CRUD. So who has read, who has write, and it's really more about, can we merge those 2 profiles into a single profile, and can we really use what we call as permission sets to just support one permission set for read and then reuse them in different profiles. So that was a big eye-opener for us as we went through it. So here's an example. We got channel leader and a channel manager. So channel leaders are the ones who actually talk to different customers, and managers are the ones who manage them. In the total 215, and there are 202 which are matching, there are 13 differences. So this is a great example for us to kind of look and see what we can really propagate into a permission set. So if you look at the differences, on the left-hand side on the screen, you can see there's account corporate entity _ C, and there's member _ C. So this one allows create, and if you scroll to the right, it also allows you to read. So this has basically given all permissions out here, which is create, read, and write. If you go to the right over here, you'll actually see this is only allows you to read. So what that tells me is we can create a permission set that says only read access, and create another one which is read and write, and that way we can actually compare the two and merge the 2 profiles into a single profile and have multiple permission sets that we can reuse. So it's just analysis. Again, you don't have to use this tool. You can use any kind of analysis, but perform this in-depth analysis by object and validate what's actually common and what can be propagated into a permission set and use that. So this is an example of a kind of a low, and there's obviously certain things which are there in A or B, but out here we've got a huge number of permission sets that are simple. So if you switch back to the use case 2, let's take a look at a medium complexity one. So here there could be certain things like marketing and legal, both looking into opportunity. So opportunity for us is a catalyst where everything comes in all the people from marketing up the chain and down the chain, we kind of look at the opportunity itself. So we want to compare out here and see what can we do to reduce the number of profiles and increase it by using reusable and multiple profiles. So let's take a look at some examples over there. So yeah, let's take a look at contracts manager, and somebody else from contract side. Coordinator, that's a good one. Yeah, let's compare these two. And when we compare these two, the system goes and tells us that's a good example. So we've got 176 that are matching and 52 that are different. So what this tells us is that just a simple analysis can tell us that there's a huge number of permission sets that we can basically take off from profiles and put them into permission sets. So that can reduce the number of custom profiles that we created, which was our objective. So, and these ones are obviously going to be reusable. There will be other opportunities where we can use the same permission sets that are created. So similarly, when we went through it a little bit more in detail, we allowed create, allow, so the read, the whole CRUD basically came out and helped us a lot to analyze it, that this is something that can be built into the system where we have maybe multiple reusable read-only permission sets that can be propagated to a large number of profiles, and then there can be some that can be controlled in terms of who are actually editing that particular object. And this was huge. So this tool was actually built with our partners. We use TCS as our company who supports us for development activities, and they really helped us build this thing out. So we had the concept, and it really helped us to kind of build this out. So let's take a look at another example, a little bit more complex. And so far we've seen something similar, something mid-level, but let's compare absolutely two different, profiles, and let's see if there's any opportunities out there. And this is where we really kind of were surprised with the kind of results we got. So we'll take two different ones. There are huge number of overlaps or crossovers, but there could be some opportunities there as well. So let's take a look at some different ones. And this is where we also landed up cleaning up a lot of our activities. Right? So if we look at maybe we pick up sysadmin, or let's take a project manager, and then what do we have in the project management team? So this was another great example where we went and incrementally built more and more functionality. It was done in silos. Everybody went and requested their own profiles, and then we had similar profiles, and that's a great example. So you got 217 objects, out of which 151 were common. So again, a huge area for us to merge these two profiles, just because they're almost the same. There's actually 116 differences, but when you drill down, when you go through the CRUD activities, they're really similar. We didn't have to have these. And, when you go back to the office and you start looking at it from this perspective, you realize there's so much of overlap, similar profiles, and they can be merged. Great candidates to be merged, because ultimately it's all about the CRUD activities. And that was a huge eye-opener for us. So 116 is a pretty big number, but when you drill down and you go through it object by object, you'll actually realize that there's so much common stuff. So use any kind of filter. You don't have to build this app. You can use any kind of filtration process. But the key thing out here is run your numbers, and they'll tell you whether you should be drilling down to the next level or not. And then do the analysis at that point to see what's actually different. And if it's really coming down to read, write, and create, then perhaps you can create multiple reusable permission sets. And as we went through this whole process, we actually realized that some of these permission sets that we already built could be reused in different profiles. So that became like a multiple reusable profile. So that was a really interesting outcome of our exercise. So these were three different cases where we can look at the different filtration process and kind of jump around and take a look at this. So let's switch back. So this is how we kind of went through our project lifecycle. The first one, like I mentioned, we had 69 sysadmin. That was a high risk for us. The first focus was really to reduce the risk. We had to bring it down to a manageable number. A couple of weeks ago, we were able to do that successfully, and that's turned out to be really cool. It's reduced the risk significantly. The second round is more focused towards the permission sets and leveraging those permission sets. And of course, then there's an iterative phase, because more functionality will be added, and as we go through it, we have to go in an iterative way of just kind of making sure that when we add new pieces, we are kind of going through this and revisiting it all the time. So a couple of takeaways. Some of the lessons learned, we kind of briefly touched upon some of these. But really, the sooner you get to it, the better it would be. Otherwise, you will have an issue like we did.
Yeah, I would reiterate that statement. Having worked in our services organisation, there's a lot of organisations that come to us looking to involve us in these optimisation type projects around the security model and stuff like that. So having this preemptive approach obviously save money in the long run. So
absolutely, could not re-emphasize more. This is like so important because you will have a big problem. It's very difficult to get out of it. A lot of resources go in later. Also make sure that you get good sponsors because there will be different business units and they don't necessarily talk to each other, and there will be times when there will be a lot of pushback. You say, oh no, I'm happy where I am, I like to do what I'm doing, and there's a lot of the sponsors help us in a lot of these things. There has to be some value that each of those sponsors are going to get. Make sure that they are laid out for them. There's also a little bit of pushback from different people, so you want to make sure that the message, the right message goes out. You want to make sure that people understand when you're reducing the number of profiles, they'll still have all the same privileges as they have on day one. It's just the way it's going to be given to them, and that's the key thing out there. So the message has to be done clearly so people don't come back and say, oh, this is not going to work for us. So a couple other things. Has to be some alignment from the organization. Ours is a large organization. We are worldwide, like I said, and we are spread all over the world. We have different groups working in silos, and we just want to make sure that it's a common strategy. Different people have different projects, different functionalities added. So we just have to reach out to all of them and say, hey, here's the benefit that you're going to go through.